You were talking about Trump Media, how they're investing 2.5 billion into crypto.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. I mean, let's back up a second because the meme coins that rolled out, right before the inauguration, and again, the MAGA loyalists were like, "Oh, this is great. This is great."
Well, I think and I've said this all along, when all is said and done, I think people are going to find out that crypto is nothing but digital air. It's not an asset. It's a perfect accounting of, uh, if you want to call it, digital mining, but of, what's the benefit? It's not an asset.
What were your thoughts when you read that the Trump Media company invested all that money into it, or they're raising money?
Um, my thought process was, Trump is in the process of forgetting his roots. His father and grandfather were big supporters of the John Birch Society. If you recall, the John Birch Society was jumping up and down when uh, Roosevelt basically took us off you know, confiscated gold from citizens, and they were jumping up and down about Bretton Woods. It just, to me, it's like Trump has forgotten his roots or forgotten his family's roots, because they were, I think, late 1800s, early 1900s, they were somehow involved in mining operations. They obviously understood money, and we'll see. I mean, you got people that say, yeah, Bill Holter's right. And you got other people saying, yeah, Bill Holter's a complete idiot regarding crypto. But I think when all is said and done, people are going to find out that they put their money into a black hole that is literally worthless, valueless. And it was disappointing to me, because I always believed that Trump was a hard money guy, and crypto is not hard money in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, I've had Bitcoin people on here, and I've two questions that I've brought up. I still really understand the responses, but one, the first question is, if there's only a finite amount of Bitcoin, right, whatever that number is,
Right.
and people, let's say, people die, logins, access gets lost. What happens to all that? What happens to all that Bitcoin? So it's going to get smaller every single year because they don't add more.
Right.
So there's that aspect. The other aspect is it's all about decentralization, right? That's what they say. Bitcoin is decentralized. But
Yeah. There have been so many arguments along the way. Like, think back, what was it, 6, 7 years ago? Oh, Bitcoin is totally anonymous. You're able to do what you want, and the government can't track you. Blah blah blah. Well, each one of these arguments have fallen. Um, you know, eight. Well, not even. I'm going to say 5 or 6 years ago, Bitcoin was going to become the new payment system. None of this has worked out. It all turned out to be wrong, and then they just go on to something new.
well, and also with that is if the government wants to come in and centralize it. And I had somebody bring up the example. I've told this a couple. I had Paul Craig Roberts on yesterday, and we were talking about this. I said, "What about if you remember Napster with the music industry, and it did
Right.
it changed everything, but they eventually figured it out, and Apple and Spotify were able to come in and
Right.
take it back from Napster and LimeWire and all the pirate uh,
Yeah.
websites. So why couldn't the government do that now if they want to centralize it and take it away
Uh,
from?
yeah. I mean, it could be done in many different manners. I mean, that's there's so many different ways that they could do that.
Couldn't they could just incentivize people to use their platform and they'll pay you. That's all they would need to do.
Or raise a special tax on crypto. And I believe they will probably do that with gold and silver, that they'll raise the tax rate, the capital gain tax rates on gold and silver. They obviously could do that. But if you look at a system that's crashed and everything's worth nothing, um, your gold and silver that do not default and still have value. So you got to pay a 50% or 70% or whatever the number happens to be tax on it. It's still better than nothing. You still have something, in other words. Well, obviously things are going to accelerate at some point, and I think the Achilles heel, and I've talked about this for years and years, the Achilles heel is that this system is built upon credit as opposed to a hard foundation of real money. And I mean, look at interest rates all over the world. Rates are rising. Just look at the balance sheet of the Federal Reserve itself. They are technically insolvent. They have a negative net worth because the bonds they hold have dropped so much in value. It's wiped out their equity position. I think their actual net worth is worse than negative $150 billion now.
Yeah, and you look at all the way down to the consumer, the buy now, pay later, which I mean, thank God for this show because I'm learning about this. People are buy now, pay later for Grubhub.
Right. Yeah, they're eating off of buy now and pay later. What could possibly go wrong?
I just saw a commercial with Will Ferrell about PayPal. You can do installments via PayPal, which that's the same thing, right? Is buy now, pay later.
Yes. Yeah. It all goes back to, I'm going to say that episode of Popeye came out in the 1930s with Wimpy. I'll gladly pay you Tuesday for a hamburger today.
And this is what shows, I mean, the real decay of our society and the deterioration. And and I think you've said this before. I mean, these institutions cannot be salvaged at this point.
No, they're upside down.
And people thought Elon Musk was going to save everything, Bill. They thought Doge was going to be the white knight and everything.
Yeah, I've talked about that. One of the unintended consequences, which we're not seeing yet because the cuts have not actually been made because they're being held up in courts. But let's say that Doge really could find $1 trillion or $2 trillion where they could shut it off. Shut that off, and you're shutting the money off to the Ponzi scheme. I mean, this whole thing has been floated on free money. And let me backtrack just a little bit. Go back to whenever it was, late 2008, early 2009, where the Fed actually advanced over $16 trillion all over the world, not just to the U.S. banks, institutions, but all over the world. And I think a little more than half went outside of the U.S. What was that based on? And we didn't find out about that until 2010 or 2011, way after the fact. But where did that 16 trillion come from? And this time around, if it needed 16 trillion back then, what do we need now? 50 trillion? 80 trillion? 100 trillion? I mean, who knows what the number is? And how does an institution with a negative 150 plus billion dollar negative net worth, how do they come up with 25, 30, 50, 100 trillion dollars? You know, where's it come from? I mean, it's all fictional.
What is that? Why Russia, China, and some of the other BRICS countries are recognizing that the dollar is not the not the future any longer?
That is exactly why there is a BRICS union. The BRICS union has come about purely because foreign nations were tired of the U.S. boot on their throat with the SWIFT system, the U.S. hegemon, and they understand that if you and I understand that the debt's not payable, there's a lot smarter people all over the world than you and I that understand the debt is not payable in current value, current values, current dollar values. So, I mean, they fully understand this, and that's why they're trying to put a system in place that avoids using the dollar.
Plus the fact that the United States will confiscate your billions of dollars if you, do something they don't like via Russia. They
did it with Russia, exactly. And look at the chart of gold. Gold started going up what day? The day after the 300 billion of Russian reserves were sequestered. You just go look at a chart. It was October of 22.
How do you just confiscate a
23,
country's?
rather. I'm sorry.
How do you just confiscate a country's $300 billion in dollars and just take it from them and think there's not going to be any type of, consequence for that?
Well, they just did it. They just did it. They said, we make the rules, and that's fine. I mean, they were able to do that, but now there's repercussions to that, and the repercussions are foreign nations don't want to use the dollars that they were using in the past because now you've scared the entire world.
How long, in your view, will it take for these countries to have the full system in place where they're not relying on the dollar anymore? And then when would the dollar lose its reserve currency status?
Well, the dollar already is losing its reserve currency status because you see nations trying to trade without dollars. You're seeing there's a lot of cross trade, like between Russia and China. They use yuan, they use rubles, and they don't use dollars.